Member, we have Assemblymember Gonzalez. 2016-128, in-home supportive services, timesheet and payroll systems. Assemblymember Gonzalez, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm here today to request an audit of the systems that affect payroll for in-home supportive service providers. There are nearly 400,000 IHSS workers statewide who provide critical services for approximately 500,000 elderly and disabled Californians. These providers take on hard and important work every single day and mostly live paycheck to paycheck. This is why I've been troubled by reports, and was troubled, in fact, when I was called. This came to my attention when my cousin called me. She's an IHSS provider, and she actually had a technical question about not being able to pay her covered California health care and having to pay the fine instead. And we got in a discussion of why. And she said, because I never get my paycheck on time. If this were a private sector employer, we would consider that wage theft. Unfortunately, the state of California has an obligation to IHSS providers to pay them in a timely manner to make sure that it's consistent, and this just simply isn't happening. So that's why we requested an audit. My hope is that a neutral and accurate evaluation of these systems by the auditor's office will clarify the magnitude of the timesheet system problems and provide guidance for solutions in the near future. With the understanding that the audit improvements will take time, I respectfully urge this committee to take action today by approving this request. With me today, I have an IHS provider here to testify, Claire Kaufman. I'm also joined by Kim Rethledge of UDW, who's available for technical questions.
My name is Claire Kaufman. I'm a member of UDW, and I've been an IHSS home care provider in El Dorado County since 2011. I have two clients. One is my 17-year-old daughter, Katie, who lives with autism, and the other is an elderly woman that lives in my community. Last November, I submitted my IHSS timesheet for the first 15 days of the month and waited for my paycheck. I waited days and then weeks, unable to get an answer about the delay. When I finally got a hold of someone, I found out that the current timesheet system was unable to read a 6 on my timesheet. I had to wait and request a duplicate timesheet, resubmit that timesheet, and continue to wait for my check. A 6 caused my pay to be delayed over a month. And since I didn't receive my paycheck on time, it meant I didn't receive my next timesheet on time, starting a cycle of delays and putting my ability to provide for my family at risk. And since I was finally paid just before Christmas and had to catch up on my late utility bills to avoid disconnections. Once I caught up on my bills, there wasn't much left to make a very Merry Christmas for my daughter, Katie, or my youngest daughter, Shauna. If it wasn't for the union giving us a basket of food, we would not have had Christmas dinner. The current IHS timesheet system is cumbersome. It's hurting the providers and our families. You know, moving from a paper to an electronic system could help prevent small errors that result in late paychecks. We need to look at what's working and what's not working. I strongly urge you to support the audit of IHSS timesheet system. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gonzalez. Any other witnesses? Oh, no, public comment, not yet. Would you like to sit at the table or no?
We do have one more witness.
Yes, go ahead, the witness.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, go ahead.
Tiffany Wayne with SEIU. I'm going to defer my time to Robert with Local 2015. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Robert Bolts. I have been an IHS provider for my son Amari for almost 5 years. Most parents find joy in taking care of their children taking their children to the beach to enjoy the ocean, playing sports, or cooking together. I find joy in helping my 5-year-old son with daily tasks that are life savers to him, such as helping him breathe with his trach, buying distilled water for his ventilator machine, and providing him nourishment through his feeding tube. My son has never known a world where I'm not helping him, and he relies on me every day. For me, however, my whole world changed this day he was born, the day he was born. I used to be a refinery worker, making up to $1,500 a week. But when my son was born, I decided to leave my job and be his care provider because I couldn't trust anyone else to look after him. When he was born, doctors told me he wouldn't make it. He wouldn't make it. Then doctors told me he would be better off in an institution. They said he would never know a life outside his bedroom. My son is resilient and improves doctors wrong every day, and even a kindergarten now. He's a kindergarten now. Where would Amari be today if his father hadn't stood up for him? Probably in a costly institution or worse. Amari looks to me every day to provide him with spring water, his needs to drink, because he's allergic to any other kind of water, to pay his electricity on time, so that the machine that keep him alive, I can't see this, sorry, that keep him alive are functioning, and to keep a roof over his head, so that he has a place he can call home and feel safe in. But every period, those tasks are expensive that my son relies on me for seems beyond my reach, because without failure, my paycheck is always late. And even now, I still ain't got a paycheck for this month. As an IHSS provider, the rules are very firm. Submit your timesheet on time. Don't make a mistake. Record your hours. And I obey the rules, and I do what I'm asked. Because just like any other parent, it's my job to have food on the table, the electricity on, and rent paid. Unlike the other parents who can expect their paycheck on a set date, IHSS providers like me are stuck waiting for an outdated payroll system to process our checks. My landlord doesn't take IOUs. My electricity bill doesn't wait until I have money to pay it, and Amari needs don't go on hold. I respectfully ask that you figure out why my paycheck is continuously late, and that this payroll system is updated so that we can do our job, be paid on time, and worry less. Thank you, Council.
Mr. Chair, I move the audit and at the appropriate time, and also request that this issue be referred to the appropriate policy committee for immediate oversight.
Hey, thank you. There's a motion second. With that, we'll have a presentation by State Auditor Eileen Howe on the audit request.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first objective that we would accomplish is the roles of the various entities that are involved in this process. It's certainly the Department of Social Services, but the Department of Technology has some responsibility with respect to this particular project, this system, and then the Employment Development Department has a role with respect to timesheets. So that would be our first objective. Then really taking a look at this system to determine whether or not it's meeting what it was intended to do from the original design. And then the rest of the objectives are really looking at process. So looking at the protocols, the payment protocols, and the rationale, whether or not they make sense. What options are available to a provider to ensure that their timesheets, to get their payment on time in the event they realize there is an error on their timesheet. So what options do they have to correct that so that they get prompt payment? What what length of time does it take for providers before they can get a timesheet if there's a lost or stolen paycheck. So how quickly does the system and the agencies respond to a situation like that? Again, the reasonableness of the length of time it's taking. Looking at the system, if there have been any significant updates to the system, have those updates improved or made things worse? So Assemblymember Gonzalez is concerned about that. Looking at how well the system is working for various state agencies, for example, EDD, and needing to provide those timesheets to providers so that they can submit them and get prompt payment for services they provide. Also, are there tools out there that assist providers with any technical problems they may run into? So what kind of guidance is being put out there to assist providers in a situation where they may have a technical problem in filling out their timesheet or in getting their paycheck? For the time period since this most recent system was updated, Ms. Gonzalez is asking us to identify the magnitude of the problems. We talked in the background that there was a situation just a year ago this month where there were 40,000 timesheets that went missing. So we would certainly want to look at situations like that and why did that occur? What are they doing to prevent situations like that from occurring in the future? She's also asked us to look at any complaints that have been filed and what the departments have done with respect to those complaints. How quickly are those complaints being resolved and the system being fixed? Last objective is related to any plans moving forward. Plans with respect to any improvements to the existing system. What's the timeline for those plans? If they don't have plans, why not? What's their rationale for not having a plan in place to address some of the problems that have occurred most recently? And then do they have a plan in place to assist providers if there's a situation where there's a breakdown similar to what occurred a year ago that would allow providers to get prompt payment, get their payments on time so they can deal with their personal bills, et cetera, and be able to provide for their loved ones. This audit is budgeted about 2,750 hours. Again, that would take us about 7 months to complete.
Okay, thank you. Is there any representatives from the affected agency who would like to come forward for brief comments?
Good morning, members. Robert Smith, California
At the
Department
table.
of
You can
Social
come forward to the
Services.
table, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Robert Smith, California Department of Social Services, Legislative
Like to sit at the
Office.
table as well?
I don't have any specific comments to the issues being discussed this morning, but I do want to convey certainly that if the audit is approved today, that the department will work cooperatively and closely with the state auditor and her team. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This is Greg Riggs. I'm the Legislative Director with EDD. Just a point of clarification, we have a very large print and mail facility that we use to process a lot of documents for our programs and our tax collection. We are often asked by other agencies to help with their bulk mailing, printing, and mailing of documents. We have an interagency agreement with the Department of Social Services, and we provide that service on their behalf.
Okay, questions, members of the committee? Senator Roth?
You know, I'm not generally known as the most progressive member in this building, but I expect you to do more than wait for the audit to be approved to get moving on this thing. I don't know the logistics of lining up a joint legislative oversight hearing on this, but I fully intend to explore that. If we have 40,000 timesheets that are missing, if we have people that are denied paychecks because we, the state, are not moving quickly enough, then we, by gosh, have got to fix that. And we can't wait 7 months to get an audit report to do it. So I'm just one member, but I would suggest that when you two leave, you call somebody and get somebody working on this.
Any other questions? Assemblymember Baker?
Make that 2 members. I'm pretty sure everybody on this committee feels that it's a total abomination, the system that you have. And if the legislature plays a role in why you have it, which I doubt, there cannot be an excuse. I want to thank the witnesses for coming away from their families to be here and testify to this. Let's get on the policy side. If it helps to have an audit for data points or otherwise, we don't need it. But we ought to get on this. And I look forward to you coming back to this body and showing how you fixed it. especially with timesheets like this. This is wage theft. And it's in the news today about private employers who are currently under investigation for what they may be or not doing with their wages and the timeliness and otherwise. But it's a total abomination. Fix it. We will work together to make sure we do that. And I hope it can be this term.
Any other questions, members of the committee? Seeing and hearing none, we'll open up for public comment. Is there members of the public that would like to come forward? State your name, and you have 2 minutes.
Libby Sanchez on behalf of the California Association of Public Authorities for In-Home Supportive Services. We're the local government entities that are the conduit between providers and consumers and are often the very first call that is made when a provider is not receiving their paycheck timely. Those calls happen all too often. We do our due diligence to try to figure out how to get our providers their paychecks timely, but the unfortunate reality is that the providers are low-wage workers who cannot sustain 30 days without receiving their paycheck. There have to be answers, and we have full faith and confidence, if the committee approves this audit request today, that the inimitable state auditor will be able to get to the bottom of this and figure out how these problems can better be addressed so that providers are paid timely and we can go back to doing the job with which we're truly tasked. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Greg Barney. I'm a home care provider, member of UDW. Let me move this up here, please. And also live in Merced. I'll take care of an elderly woman in Merced. And one of the issues that we were talking about with the paychecks, I was one of the unfortunate ones to last year have a paycheck that was, that didn't arrive at all. And when I inquired about it, I went through the proper channels, and I was told that, hey, it was sent to you, and that was it. And I thought that was a kind of condescending way to respond. So I kind of let it go. Me being myself, I'm a retired military person. I understand that sometimes there are hiccups that comes with a system. I let it go. But then it happened again. And this time I wasn't going to let it go. I figured that there was something that wasn't right. There was something that's going on that, that wasn't supposed to be. And I was hearing other people that were having many problems, some of them not even receiving checks for months. So that still, the recent one this year, I still haven't been, reimbursed for that. But I just want to say that I strongly support that there be an audit of this CMIP system. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Buenos días a todos los que estamos aquí presentes, damas y caballeros. Yo vengo de la ciudad de San José, soy del país de Nicaragua, de Managua, Nicaragua. Tengo 22 años de vivir en San José, en la ciudad de San José, y a mi esposa pues le sucedió un accidente en el año 2010, el 16 de septiembre, y está discapacitada. Entonces yo tenía mi trabajo, ella se accidentó y yo tenía mi trabajo y dejé de trabajar para cuidarla a ella porque no la quise meter en una casa de cuidado.
Hello, members. I'm just going to translate briefly. I'm Samantha. His name is Roosevelt. He's originally from Nicaragua. He lives in San Jose. And many years ago, his wife suffered an accident, and so he takes care of her now. He had to leave his job to take care of his disabled wife.
Gracias. Y bueno, el motivo ya es de sobra conocido por todas las personas aquí, las autoridades presentes, gubernamentales. Les doy gracias por escucharnos, por escuchar nuestras voces, nuestros intereses, y y les pido pues por favor que encontremos una solución para que las cartas de trabajo y los cheques de pago de trabajo pues nos lleguen a tiempo y a ver qué solución le podemos dar entre todos. Y muchas gracias por todo y les agradezco.
And so I just want to thank every single one of you for hearing us, for hearing our voice, and thank you so much. And so we all collectively need to find a solution to this to make sure that our timesheets are processed on time and that our paychecks are given on time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next.
Hello. My name is Mary Armstrong. I am an IHSS provider and a member of the UDW Union. I live in Modesto, California, which is in the county of Stanislaus, where I take care of two people. Both are blind, and they live alone. And I can say one check was late, more than one, but the main problem is I haven't been paid. I've worked for one of my clients for an entire month, and due to paperwork and red tape and whatever they're doing, they didn't get her back in the system. So as of today, I am still working for her. She's also diabetic, and she's on dialysis, so when her hours stopped, I couldn't stop working for her. I continue to care for her as of this day, but as of this day, which is the end of the month, I haven't been paid for this month at all. And the first 2 weeks, and I haven't received timesheets for the last 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Pamela Jones, and I am a member of UDW. I live in Calaveras County, which I have a client there, and I also work in Placer County. Numerous times, I've not even gotten a time card for 30 days plus or a paycheck. And I strongly urge that you audit this program and get it fixed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, my name is Crystal, and I have 4 caregivers. I'm from Butte County. I got involved when my caregivers didn't get their checks. Their checks were delayed a full pay period. Then they stopped getting their time cards. They contacted payroll. I eventually contacted payroll. After 3 calls, I finally told them, hey, I'm coming in to pick up my caregivers' time cards. They were 3 and 4 pay periods behind. One of my caregivers is still trying to get paid for January. When my caregivers don't get paid, I lose caregivers. I've got 2 caregivers that won't work until they get their paychecks, and I don't blame them. They got families to support, they got bills to pay. This needs to be resolved. I depend on my caregivers. They're not a luxury, they're a necessity. Thank you. Please, please. We're looking to you to solve this, please.
All right.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Jeannie Rezebek, and I'm an IHSS worker in El Dorado County and also a UDW member. There's two problems here with the checks. First of all, it's time card problems, the tardiness of them getting to the provider. Secondly, the actual process in itself of the checks. I've had to wait 6 weeks for 3 checks that were backlogged because of a time card problem. So I really hope that you guys can go forth with this audit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Naisha Brown. I'm from San Francisco, California. I am a in-home care provider. I have been working for the past 4.5 years, going on 5. Basically, my 2 issues regarding payroll, again, piggybacking on the young lady here, being on time. If we're turning in our timesheets on a certain date and we expected to get it in 10 days. We shouldn't have to wait for 6 to 8 weeks to receive it. I just quit one of my jobs working with a client because of an issue of shared costs. Come to find out that the shared cost was not her issue. It was Medi-Cal made a mistake of following her paperwork. So now it pushed me back of receiving my money, but I'm still waiting on my check. I did quit working for this lady because I didn't want her to have to pay out her pocket because of a fixed income. So, fortunately, I don't work for her. I'm still waiting on my check. When you try to address these situations with the finance department, you get the runaround. They tell you, we don't have enough people working. Well, hire somebody else. Hire more people. We want to get paid on time as well as the state workers. Thank you.
All workers.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. I'm coming from San Jose. My name is Angelica Salinas. I had the same problem, and I support because I was in the same situation that the other persons talk. So I support the. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Is there any other members of the public who would like to comment? Hearing and seeing none. Senator Levy, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually don't have a question. I'm wondering if maybe we as legislators should organize a little field trip and go over and see why this is happening. This is absolutely appalling. I come from the private sector, and when someone wasn't paid, the company had to do a paid out for them right then and there. So maybe we need to teach the state to do a paid out, or maybe the folks in charge should lose a couple paychecks until they get it fixed and they can figure out what it's like to not have your paycheck and not be able to pay your bills. I can't even believe that this is happening. The 40,000 that were lost, oh my God. I just came from a meeting where we were talking about homelessness, and one of the issues I brought up is making sure people had good jobs, and that helps with homelessness. Well, when you have a job and you don't get paid, that attributes to our homeless problem. So whatever I can do personally, whatever we can do to make this happen immediately needs to happen. This is shameful for anyone who's in elected office. And you guys who work there, I don't know you. I've never met you until today, but you should be very embarrassed that this is happening. I'm sure you guys haven't missed any of your paychecks. Thank you.
Senator Roth, question?
For the state auditor, but I guess first, I fully intend to pursue the oversight issue. I don't know whose budget subcommittee has it. I'm not sure that it's the one that I chair, but I'm going to find the one that has jurisdiction over this, and we'll figure out how to organize an oversight hearing unless the agencies manage to fix it before we get that on the docket. But having said that, Madam Auditor, this is not the usual audit that we hear here. And the usual audit, of course, takes whatever the audit takes in order to get it accomplished. I'm just wondering if there's a way for you and your team to somehow expedite this audit, given the fact that we have people's pay, in some cases their health and their livelihood at stake. So if you could consider that, I would appreciate it. And Mr. Chair, I'd renew my motion and also my request that this issue be referred to the appropriate policy committee for review.
Assemblymember Jones, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Gonzalez, most of the IHSS workers, or maybe all of them, are members of a particular union. I think some of them mentioned that today.
Two different unions.
Two different unions. Okay. What is the? Can you comment on what the unions have been doing about this? It seems kind of like, there should have been some oversight from them as well prior to rising to this level of concern.
I just, and I want to remind the committee, I actually brought this to the union because my cousin had a problem, and we solved it for her through calling the state. And that's when I realized they absolutely said, yes, this is a huge problem. We've been trying to work on it. But I want to remind you that these unions have been trying to work on a ton of issues with this administration, have been trying to get a lot of things for their members and continue to try to. So when you're in the middle of bargaining with somebody who does not, quite frankly, the governor does not want to do anymore and is brought along kicking and screaming when it comes to our in-home support service workers. It's like the litany of issues that they face. It's one of many. And I just thought that, like all of you, I was outraged. Having come from organized labor, obviously we know in the private sector, we would be picketing and demanding and throwing people in jail, over the type of mass wage theft that has gone on in this program. But the union both unions have so many issues that they're fighting for with this governor. It has been brought up, and I think that their frustration has been like, okay, we've got to work on this as well. It's one of many issues, and so I said, well, let's at least pursue this through an audit.
Well, I certainly agree with the comments that have been shared by the other members of the committee, and I think in a situation like this, the negotiations with the governor and the administration, that's one level of conversation, but when you're talking about people's basic income, and that's what they're counting on, I think that rises to a higher level of scrutiny, and I'm hoping that, obviously we've got movement here, but I'm hopeful that the unions will do their part as well in helping out. So
I'm going to defer to the union, one of the union reps who are here, because
okay, thank you.
I in no way am suggesting that the union has ignored this issue.
Hi.
Nor am I. Okay. I just want to.
No, I just want to. I'm Kim Rutledge. I'm with UDW, and I'm speaking on behalf of both of our labor organizations, UDW and SEIU Local 2015. We actually, after the incident in Los Angeles County this time last year, where the 40,000 timesheets went missing, we were in really direct conversations with the Department of Social Services and the Office of Systems Integration, because that was sort of the wake-up call. Even though we had been going back to 2013, and even when the CMIPS 2 system was rolled out, and even before that, dealing with a lot of delays, we really, after the 40,000 timesheets went missing, that's what really was a wake-up call, I think, for the Department of Social Services. And initially, they were very open to talking to us about looking to solutions, including possibly coming up with an electronic timesheet system, or something that would maybe move away from having to rely on the Postal Service and having to rely on 3 different state agencies and a tech vendor just to get a paycheck out to a provider. Those conversations were actually fairly informative, and we were making some progress until October, when some other issues around the Fair Labor Standards Act, overtime pay came up, and DSS just basically dropped all of our discussions at that point to concentrate on some other issues. And at that point, that's when we kind of ramped up our conversations with Assemblymember Gonzalez about doing an audit, because they all of a sudden were like, oh, well, we have too many other IHSS issues to work on to really look at this right now. We're going to have to delay it indefinitely. And from our perspective, I mean, these are our providers, as you've heard all morning, not getting paid in a timely manner. And even though we understand we've got a lot of other issues that we're coming to, this is a complex program, and we can't have people caring for our most vulnerable Californians not getting paid on time. Also, I want to just briefly back up Senator Leva's comments about maybe taking a field trip to look at the system. I actually have gone on that little field trip to the timesheet processing facility in Chico. It is a 2-building facility that you see firsthand how these timesheets go through. And if an envelope is too thick, like if you put something other than just the timesheet in your envelope, the system spits it out and it has to be manually processed. If you use blue ink or red ink or any other color of ink other than black, the system doesn't read it and spits it out, and it has to be manually processed. And all of these things, when you start looking at it that way, add up to delays. And it's 2016. I mean, we would think that everybody has a smartphone at this point. And you would think that there would be a way for someone like Ms. Kaufman not to have her pay delayed because the system couldn't read her writing, or somebody not getting paid because they picked up a blue pen instead of a black pen. I mean, who's even heard of such a thing? So the trip to Chico that I took last summer after the 40,000 timesheets went missing was really, really enlightening, and I think it would be well worth any legislator's time to see that firsthand, because it's a really interesting look at the way the system works. So thank you all very much.
Senator Gilgiani had a question before we move forward.
It's a comment and a question. So I wonder how much of this is systemic and how much of this might be that there are a certain number of specific employees whose performance is lackadaisical, less than should be expected. I'm wondering if the way that the audit request has been written, will it tell us that? Will it point to whether it's how much of it's systemic and how much might fall on a specific group of employees that are not carrying the load that they should carry?
Well, the objectives don't specifically ask us to look at employees. Anytime we conduct an audit like this, we will be looking at process, but when we're trying to determine the cause or the reasons for the delays and the problems, we would potentially get to an issue as to do they have sufficient number of employees? If the employees are having trouble dealing with the system, why is that? Do they not receive sufficient training, that sort of thing? So I don't know that the audit would specifically say these 3 employees are problematic. It would look at the system, and then it would determine whether or not, again, if a lot of it is a manual system, why is that, number one? Number two, how many staff are working on the manual portion of the system, and then what type of training, et cetera, has been provided to those particular employees. So it would get at it from that perspective.
Well, in the private sector, in a situation like this, people would probably be fired. Mm-hmm. So what I'm suggesting is that if it appears that it's specific employees that are not showing up to do their job, that are not performing as they should, that maybe some people should lose their jobs if they can't do it right. So I'm hoping that the way this is written, it will show us how much is systemic and how much is actually problems with employees that are currently performing the jobs.
Okay, with that, Assemblymember Wood, so we can move forward. Question?
Yes, I just want to thank you again, Assemblymember Gonzalez, for bringing this here. And I want to thank the witnesses for coming, because I know it's a hardship. These folks have taken time off, a day off probably, that they're not getting paid for, and to be here, and they shouldn't be here. They should not be here. I come from the private sector too, just like Senator Leyva, and I know others out there. And I can tell you, we in the private sector, when it comes to pay, we are very, very serious about that. The last thing I want is the state coming down on me for not timely doing something. So we had a person dedicated to dealing with those kinds of issues year in and year out. So why do we, as a state, not extend that same courtesy to people that we are employing here? And that is absolutely the only word that comes up is completely unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, with that, Assemblymember Gonzalez, would you like to close?
Well, I'm in an odd way very excited that everybody is as outraged, because sometimes I think my outrage is just me being outraged at the system. But I actually think that this is good. And we can do productive things, because this is one problem that IHSS workers are facing. We have a society that is aging quickly. We know that healthcare is expensive. We actually save the state money by having providers and people be able to stay in their house. It is it's a costly program, but a program that ultimately saves the state money. And yet they are constantly treated like second-class citizens, constantly having to fight for the very basic rights that we suggest everybody should have in the private sector. I've been outraged. I know a lot of people on this panel have done work on this as well, and I think we should have an oversight hearing. I'd love to join any of you on that, and on that question on a field trip. But I do want to I want to remind folks as we move forward, this is one of many problems that IHSS workers face, and one of the many ways that they're discriminated against, quite frankly, by the state. They are doing us a service. They are saving us money, and I think that can't go understated. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this audit, and to continue to work on this and the other issues that our providers face.
Thank you, Assemblymember Gonzalez. After obviously hearing all these issues that brought to our attention here, I'm a strong yes on this audit. And I can't believe that this is happening at this day and age, where we have technology, we have everything to supposedly address these issues from occurring, but yet still occurring. So members, a strong yes. Hopefully I can get your support as well. So is there a motion and a second to approve audit 2016-128? I believe there was, right? Do a roll call, Secretary.
Assemblymember Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rodriguez, aye. Ashajian.
Aye.
Ashajian, aye. Arambula. Aye. Arambula, aye. Baker.
Aye.
Baker, aye. Jones.
Aye.
Jones, aye. Nazarian. Wood.
Aye.
Wood, aye. Senator Roth.
Aye.
Roth, aye. Bell.
Aye.
Bell, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Lara.
Aye.
Lara, aye. Leyva. Aye. Leyva, aye.